Welcome back to Drinks Coach, Series 3. Can you see those fingers? I can't. Some things have happened this year. Firstly, my eyesight's got worse. I think it's finally caught up with me after all these years having perfect jet pilot eyesight. I'm now struggling to see things, especially when there's limited light. You'll be seeing me in reading glasses soon, don't worry. I'm in a beautiful dining room, my in-laws' house. And welcome back. I sound terrible, don't I? Well, trying new things today. We're trying to um, do an episode while I've got a very high temperature and a terrible chest infection um, without reading it, and while I can still kind of think. And also, we are trying new lapel mics, so I don't have to shout as much as I used to. So hopefully, I've got enough stamina to talk through this episode. I'm sorry, every time I lean on the dining table, you can hear it squeaking. That's the way of highly polished, beautiful oak dining tables. But hopefully, this looks a little bit less um, like a skip than R flat. Anyway, so there we go. So what we're going to do today? Well, I thought very, very quick catch up for those people who may not be familiar with Drinks Coach. This is series 3. Series 2 started almost exactly this time last year. I knocked out about 30 odd shows, I think, and then we had to stop again because work came back, and that's the way of things. But the one before, first series, where there's still an awful lot of relevant content. I did 186 shows during lockdown, which is bonkers. But what else is I going to do but share my love for free online? So, for example, if you want to learn about sherry, or you want to learn about Madeira, or I know Greek wine, go into the Drinks Coach UK on YouTube and put in Greek wine, the Drinks Coach UK, and it will probably highlight 3 episodes that I did together on Greek wine, for example. And I did them so that I wouldn't have to repeat myself, actually. And there are some very good examples, very good wine tasting examples that you can taste alongside them. If there are new vintages you have to get, fine. Um, but I think that those shows which are about the actual regions actually have proper valid um, training potential. But some of them are a little bit more irreverent than that. Some of them I'm less informed than that, certainly when it comes to some of the more obscure spirits I've done over the years. Anyway, I'm now rambling. My name is Joe Wadsack. You can get me on Vinesack, Vinesack. That's all lowercase. The Drinks Coach is another moniker that I will get you from. And yeah, without further ado, let's start with this. I'm trying to make these shorter. Don't know how I'm going to do that. Okay, so today we are going to talk about Yotes Court. Yotes Court is a company that approached me back in, I think it was February or March this year, and very kindly offered to sponsor a couple of slots in our very first food festival of the year. Those people that know me will know, my wife and I are at all the food festivals called Foodies Festival around the country. We do about 40 different single individual days around the country, giving master classes on all sorts of things. And Yotes Court said, "Oh, we'd love to have you show some of our wines if we may." So we did, and one of the things I did say is I promised I'd do a little drinks coach afterwards, which never actually happened back in spring. I mean, I think we're going back to the end of May, which was the first food festival in Brighton, which is where we did it. Which is kind of nice because now we've got delayed gratification, haven't we? I can see what the wine tastes like 6 months on. Also, it's more relevant now because you're probably more likely to buy something. So everyone's a winner. That's the way I see it. But Rebecca Allen, who was the cellar door manager, thank you very much for offering us the work and believing in our method. And I do hope that you got some sales out of it. But this is a chance for us to maybe augment those. Yotes Court, owned by a lady called Susannah Ricci, very famous woman involved in national hunt racing and has some very fancy horses, trained by very fancy trainers, and very successful horses they have been too. And you'll see when you look at the labels that they look like the silks worn by jockeys. In fact, I think these may even be the colours that she uses, sort of like peach on blue, that kind of thing. But you'll see here, they do look like jockeys' aprons. There's a beautiful one there, that's the Bacchus. Forgive me, sorry about that, it sounds awful, doesn't it? But I'm doing it, and I'm doing it for you guys. Pause. Right, first one we're going to open. I'll tell you a little bit about the place. Vineyards were selected and found with the help of a chap called Stephen Skelton, Master of Wine, who, with almost no exception, is probably the most experienced planner, plotter, winemaker of vineyards in Britain ever, I would say. I mean, he was, when I was only 20 years old, I remember going into a wine and spirit education trust masterclass on a blind tasting, and a guy called David Gill, master of wine, poured me a glass of wine, and I drank it. I thought, this is delicious. What is this? I've never had this before. And it was a Bacchus from Breaky Bottom in Kent, 1990, made by Stephen, no less. Ooh, that was loud. Um, so they were, as far as I'm concerned, that they were making very good wine, or he's been making good wine since a very long time ago. How long is that? 33 years ago, 34 years ago. Um, so he said that when he saw the vineyards and looked at the soil structures and the amount of the depth of the water table, the free draining nature of the soils on top, the aspects, that this was to date, I think, the best plot or best site he'd ever selected and planted for a vineyard in this country. And he's seen many, many of them, which bodes very well because it sounds like Susannah's been offered very good advice and hasn't mucked about. She hasn't done anything by halves. Apparently, the equipment's fantastic. You can go and visit there for teas and afternoons. It's a beautiful, beautiful estate. But we have Tony Purdy, he used to be at Babbage Wines, a very large producer of Sauvignon Blanc in New Zealand. And Tony is the vineyard manager. He looks after growing the grapes. He's kind of like he's got the finger on the quality, you know. The phrase "you can't make a stop purse out of a sow's ear" is no more relevant with wine than anywhere else. And you can't polish a turd, to quote one of my great senseis in the Australian wine business. Thanks for that, Steve Webber. He said, if you're in the wrong place, Joey, you can have the best winemakers in the world. You're just polishing turds all day. Well, it looks like we're not going to worry about that here because Susannah Ricci has a perfect plot. She's got a very high experience, very, very knowledgeable producer in Tony, vineyard manager and great grower. But also she's got a consultancy called Defined Wines, looking after winemaking operations, headed up by another Kiwi called Nick Lane. Nick Lane has enormous experience, not only experience in winemaking per se, but experience in northern French winemaking, which is very close climatically to us, in making sparkling wines. He's worked in Limoux, he's worked in California, Australia, Victoria, Australia, New Zealand, Hawke's Bay, Champagne. So appropriate knowledge as well as very high level of knowledge, considering that they're in Kent, making sparkling wine amongst other things. But also he was a winemaker at Dom Perignon, la-di-da, fancy, the very famous champagne house, and also the famous New Zealand producer Cloudy Bay, of course, both owned by Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy Dior, which is the full name of Moet Hennessy as a company. So, without further ado, we've got a glass of wine here. I'm just going to taste them as we talk. It's called Yotes Court Early Release Pinot Gris 2022. The last time I tasted this, it had been in bottle for 6 weeks, max, less, I think. It was a bit jumpy, but people still liked it. Pinot Gris, well, Pinot Gris is definitely going to grow in this country. Now the temperatures are just coming up slightly. A lot of people have invested time in Pinot Gris, and it seems like a great variety, which is worth taking seriously because it might well give us some of our first really full-bodied white wines as well. But Pinot Gris is the same as Pinot Grigio. If you make lots and lots of it, you're going to make a load of tat, really. Real kind of not world-class schmutter in any way. But if you make a very small amount, you make wonderfully concentrated, interesting wines. Furthermore, if you're making sparkling wine, you don't need concentration. Actually, yields are quite good. So here you've got a great variety, which is of noble quality, which produces premium levels of output in terms of yield, but is also capable of making sparkling wine if the acidity is high enough. And this country is higher than anywhere else. So let's have a look at this. Got a lovely nose. I've been waving around while I talk about this, and the room smells of kind of freshly baked white loaf, like a batch loaf. It smells like baked bread. There's a lovely, skinny, slow-cooked apple mousse, baked apple quality to it as well. Bit of florality, but you definitely get the sense that there's fresh fruit in here. Well, it's called early release for a reason. I think there's supposed to be a wine that you drink while you're waiting for the more intense, more traditional method wines to come into play. It's very easy, soft. I think it'd also make a very nice Kia, actually, if you added some English blackcurrant liqueur to that. Wouldn't have to be English, I'm just saying. But there we go. So I didn't actually revisit the site. Pardon me. Pardon me. Oh, I sound pathetic. Pathetic. Um, I didn't check the prices. So if you bear with me while I talk about the wines, I should do that very thing. Oh dear. Okay. Yes. Kent. Kent is the warmest of our counties. Probably has the most erratic weather patterns, but it's more turbulent elsewhere. Has the warmest and the coldest, if you like. But I think it's very promising for table wines. And we've only brought one sparkling wine for you to try here because I think table wine is really what it's all about. Um, the winemakers and the wine growers have got quite excited about brand new available varieties which they've planted in large quantities at Yotes courts. I won't even bother you with the names; you won't remember them. But they are great varieties which, until I've seen 5 or 6 examples, I don't feel qualified to discuss them or to talk about them on a qualitative level. So I've stuck to the grapes that I know. Here we are. Let's go to my browser. Okay. The prices are, he says, all wines. I think I might have bed off more than I can chew here, but we'll see if I can carry on. Yes, Live, Love, Laugh is the name of this wine, this early release. It's £29.50. I think any sparkling wine in this country, the champagne method, that's £30 or less. You're doing right there. And this is, in fact, traditional method for sparkling, made the way that champagne is. That is to say, they made a table wine, they blended different cuvées of wine together, resubmitted it into the bottle, and fermented it again to create the bubbles and create levels of complexity, etc. So they haven't been able to make a quick dash of it, but it is released slightly earlier than others. I imagine it's only been on this lease for 6 to 9 months or something like that. But that manifests itself as that lovely bready taste. And I can imagine that being delicious, like it's like an ultra, ultra, ultra refined sparkling apple cider. It would be delicious with a Ploughman's. I'm just a plate of cheddar and lovely blue and English butter. I can see that being an absolute banger. So, should we go on to the table wines? I believe we should. We're going to start with this one. So, Bacchus. Bacchus is the grape variety which we have in this country, which is most closely associated aromatically and stylistically with modern Sauvignon Blanc. Your New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, which is handy because they're both Kiwis and they've been making wine like this all their entire lives. So if anyone's going to get it right, these guys should really. And we're looking at the price here on the nod, Bacchus 2022, £17.50. I think that's very fair. If you know the price of English wines, £17.50. It doesn't go below that really. And I've had some fairly ordinary wines at that price, which I know this isn't. Okay, so let's have a pour of that. It's only 11.5%, I think. 12% alcohol, which is nice. I don't think they need to chaptalize. That's ripe grapes, untouched. Lovely glassware here. We're using Zalto today. Oh, lovely, lovely whiff of white sugar melon and white and pink grapefruit. There's a real pink grapefruit aroma, which is almost always present when you taste Bacchus. And when it's young, you always get the sort of smell, that kind of almost spicy pink grapefruit oil off the skin. Almost a little bit too like lemongrass almost. Right on the palate. Clean, sleek, not complicated. I don't think you want this wine to be too complex. You want to be able to guzzle this in front of the horse racing, don't you? Or possibly a bit of goat's cheese or something. But a very versatile food wine as well, especially if you think about the things that we tend to eat in the summer months. This would be lovely with something like poached salmon, any kind of fish really. Prawn cocktail would be perfect, really. I'd even have a crack at this with good old fish and chips. Anyway, so there you go. That's on the nod. Gorgeous nose. Now it's opening up. It's got a smell of almost licorice. There's a kind of licorice root smell. And that citrus is now coming into focus, and it's very much like um, a dried lime, which is kind of a nice taste. Those dried limes you get in Thailand, desiccated lime notes. I could drink that whole bottle, especially with my sore throat. This is like medicine. Shit. It's like, okay, let's call it On the Nod 2022. Joe, what's that quote? It's Savlon for the throat. Thank you. One more to go. Here we are. And this wine is called Best Turned Out. And it's a Meunier. I'm in a bit of a quandary about this. I was told by the French you're no longer allowed to call Meunier Pinot Meunier because Meunier is not related to Pinot Noir or Chardonnay, which are both Pinot varieties. But it seems everyone's doing it, so I shouldn't bother. Maybe that was a lie. So this is nearly £20. It's £19. Meunier is the grape variety which, when you're making champagne, if it's not Pinot Noir and it's not Chardonnay, it's Meunier. I mean, there are some obscure little also rounds as well. Petit Alvin, Tromonceau, which is actually Fromenceau, sorry, which is Pinot Gris, which is allowed. But there's been quite a lot of Meunier planted in this country. And all the little loose areas of chalk that we have, and there are some areas of chalk even in Kent, it's shown to be sublime with Meunier. And the funny thing is, if you go to Champagne, Meunier is not considered a noble variety. So it's not planted in Grand Cru vineyards. It's not allowed to be. It's not allowed to add. A wine can't achieve Grand Cru status if it has Meunier in it, which is rather strange because from our experiences in this country, I don't think there's anything extant that would suggest that Meunier is a lesser variety than either Chardonnay or Pinot Noir. So maybe it's going to have its love and its life here. Maybe it's that slightly mediocre actor, starlet that was on a sort of soap opera in London who made it big in Hollywood. Who knows? Okay, so very pale colour. Pardon me, God, blimey. Maybe this is the last ever news coach, and after this, I will be dead. I know. No, I'll get through this. I'm a lot better than I was. Trust. So, is there anything else that I wrote down that I wanted to tell you about? I did make a few notes. Yeah, I told you where it was. Tony Purdy is the winemaker, ex Babbage. Stephen Skelton has raved about the vineyard, so you've got to listen to what he has to say. So we're all expecting great things, even though it's very early days yet. And we have Mr. Nick Lane, former winemaker at Gladdy Bay, making the wines with his team. Anyway, this wine has already changed quite a lot of colour. When I saw this wine in the summer, it's a 2022, so it's already a year old. It had more of a proper pink. It's now what the French call pelure d'oignon, or onion skin. Rose copper, I would call it. Well, it settled down. It was very, not overtly fruity, but very kind of like liminally fruity. It was like very, like fresh. You know, when you squeeze a lime in a press, you get all that fresh smell, but it's very ephemeral. It doesn't last very long. This one's more vinous now, and I'm smelling it. It's got a lovely, subtle smell of wild strawberry, slightly mushed raspberries, which is always delicious. Okay, good. Definitely decent. I think that the white was better balanced. You know, it's early days still. This wine isn't designed to live forever. I imagine we've had an entire summer and this stuff's all been drunk already. But I think that there's going to be riper vintages coming along. Mine's a little tart on the finish, but in a pretty way. Cranberries. You know, imagine things like those kind of things that a nice sharp edge of acidity works very well with, like I don't know, smoked eel, fatty fish, that kind of thing, or a lovely salad with fresh sliced fennel bulb, and maybe some trout or some smoked mackerel tossed in. That would be a wonderful match with that. It's got nice texture despite everything, which I think is important in Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is always more almost about the way it feels than the way it smells or tastes, and this wine gets that right. 20 quid, 30 quid, 17.50, 20 quid. I'm going for the cheapie today. I thought the Bacchus was very, very good, and I shall be drinking more of this as soon as I turn the camera off. Stay cool, stay groovy. Next time, we're going to do some more wine from up the road. I think we're going to be doing Silver Rain and Silver Hand from Kent. Catch you later.